Hi, this is Rick Harsh, and I am sponsored by Saver Guitars. Saver Guitars, best luthier in ex-Yugoslavia. Guitars made by hand, electric guitars, mandolins, guitars, guitars. Yeah. Well, today what I wanted to talk about was how to choose history books, how to decide history, which history books you want to read. You know, when you want to one of the things that is happening right now in the United States, in the consciousness of the people of the United States, within the ambit of their ambitious ambulatory brain farts, is the what would you call it, the genocide in Gaza, or you could call it, if you don't want to use the word genocide, you could call it the intensification, the ramping up of uh, the international law breaking behavior that's been going on there since, if you want to be kind, since 1967. Now, um, but the thing is, let me take another example: the war in Vietnam. How do you choose what to read about if you want to find out what's really going on? Now, if you want to find out day in and day out what's happening, like for instance, if the war in Vietnam were going on today, where would we read about what's really going on? Uh, you recall the My Lai massacre? That's something that went on, and it took an investigative reporter and a few people who were um, sober enough to be sickened by the slaughter. It took witnesses, and even then, the whole thing was kind of swept under the Kali rug. Not the goddess Kali, but the Richard Kali, or Kali, I don't know what his name was. He went to jail for it. It was all blamed on him. But now we know, through books by Nick Turse and others, that such massacres were actually systemic and took place quite often. And that was not um, the remarkable, odd incident that it seemed to be at the time. Rather like the Israeli butt fucking that goes on every single day in prisons in Israel, Israeli controlled. No, Israel. We'll call it Israel, even though it should be Palestine. Um, Even the West Bank will be called Israel soon, the way that things are going. But yeah, so these are common things, and now if you want to read about Vietnam, you have to catch up. You can go back to the old books that Rick Harsh said you should read, like Gabriel Kolko's uh, History of Vietnam, and then you can read the old French writers, Bernard Fall, and I can't remember the other guy's name. I think I had this problem last time I talked about this. But then you need to find out, well, what's been written since, because you get up to Nick Turse, and I thought I knew what I needed to know about Vietnam. You know, how many books have I read about Vietnam? Maybe 50. I don't know. But more documents become available, and writers are, pretty good. It's interesting, the phenomenon that the historians in the relatively free presses, and universities are sometimes still free, and they're not very welcoming to protesters, which is alarming. Um, Jesus, that guy, that fuckhead Shapiro, that was supposed to be the best choice for uh, running mate of Kamala Harris. What a pig. If you've ever heard him talk about students protesting the genocide in Gaza, um, uh, he's a real pig. Anyway, that kind of thing. It derails me constantly. My brain just goes off in another direction, and I think the problem is that it's like when you drive on the autocesta or the autostrada or the interstate, depending on where you're listening from. The M16 or whatever it is in London. The M, I don't know what it is. Anyway, the thing is, there, like like whenever you talk about these things, there are these rest stops on the way, you know, and I have this habit when I drive of choosing a favorite rest stop and saying, okay, we're not going to pull over till we get to Loam. And then after Loam, if we're coming this way, we're not going to pull over again after Loam. It's Loam and then home. But when we're going the other way, I don't really have the Loam is further. So maybe we'll stop somewhere else. Maybe we'll stop in Coper, just nearby. But there are plenty of rest stops, and that's what these moments, uh, uh, these fungal growths of nasty knowledge are like for me. It's hard to pass them by. Like it's like as if my bladder were provoked by every rest stop sign. Oh, rest stop, let's go. And they charge €1 to piss in these places. I just climb over the bar. It's funny because now it's summer, and so you have a long line of people. Uh, going into the toilets. They got to go put their euro in, and then there's a turnstile, and I just go kind of aside from them and climb over the bar. None of them work there. None of them are with the police. But I'm not going to pay a fucking euro. I've been pissing at Loam, for quite some time, which means I'm stopping there, which means I'm often buying one of their cold canned coffees or whatever, and maybe even gas sometimes. So I'm not gonna pay to piss there. So I climb over. Anyway, the point is that these are fungal growths. There's so much to talk about in all of these cases, like the Palestinian struggle, which is has become the most grotesque event that I've ever had to witness. And I don't know, if I'm talking to someone now, if you're from the United States and all of you're aware, interested, you care, but you don't have the time to do more than consult your local paper, you're going to be missing out on the truth because if you were in Israel, like the U.S. historians about Vietnam, that there are historians in Israel and even journalists who actually tell the truth, and so That could be one way of looking for, if you want to understand this conflict through historical means. You might want to see who the best historians are, and you'll find that there are probably some underpublished, uh, there are probably some really great Palestinian historians who never really got and still don't get proper distribution. But there are great historians from Israel, and in fact, right now I'm reading two of them by Ilan Pappé. I wanted to read about the days leading up to 1948, and so I got that. His most famous book is this one, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, Ilan Pappé, uh, Israeli historian. And this one is the best, apparently, available on the Nakba, on what really happened in the 40s. And so I, I mean, for me, it's easy to find out because I pay so much attention to history, and I've found that because I used to buy newspapers every day, first thing in the morning, baseball scores, got to get it. Usually, I'd go get a newspaper, come home, make coffee, and that would start my morning out. But when I got to Slovenia, there was the International Herald Tribune for a while, but the price went way up, and it became less easy to find. There was the Guardian, I think, for a while, but after a decade or so, it was no longer a routine for me. I'm not sure how it happened, but it was a combination of lack of substance and the price and a change in morning routine that came about through the need to work, which is really ugly. But now I've found some extremely good sources on YouTube. Electronic Intifada is one. They're excellent. Novara Media is another that's good. The Gray Zone is very good. The Useful Idiots, Katie Helper and Aaron Mate. Um, and there are others, but I've gotten from all of the sources I named, all of them are informed about what Israelis are informed about, and you are not if you only read Western newspapers. For instance, the number of people killed number of Israelis killed on October 7th. The the number is unknown, but at some point they decided okay, we'll say about 1,200 or something like that, 1,240. But after that, what one military specialist who's kind of a crackpot but knows his stuff well enough, a guy named Scott Ritter, has problems with attraction to young women. I think he's pedophiliac, uh, but a military expert. He just figured, that when like 2 days after October 7th, I saw him speaking. He was being interviewed, and he said, "Well, for sure there were, lots of these people were killed in the crossfire." Um, and I thought, I don't know. I mean, how do you know that? I mean, that just seems like a pretty wild thing to say. Well, then I learned about the Hannibal Directive, which is what the Israelis set uh, at various times what it is, they don't want hostages taken, and so if you're engaged in a fight, and it's a choice between killing both, or I think technically it's like this: your choice as a combatant is to kill the enemy, and if you can't save the hostage, then just kill them both. And basically, it's a directive to prevent hostage taking by killing the hostages. And this happened, I find out, from people like Scott Ritter, who you're not sure if you can believe, by other people who say this may have been what happened. And then Israeli newspapers, especially Haaretz, come out and say, yeah, this is what happened. They get interviews with military people, and it becomes a trusted news story in Israel. What happened was there was such chaos and panic that the sort of a buffer zone, the Gaza envelope, um, the area around Gaza, and so on. Uh, there was an order put out to, tanks are out, shoot anything that moves, basically, any car, anything. And at the same time, there were helicopter gunships in the air shooting. And so now what we know is that, according to the most trusted source I can imagine, which is an Israeli investigative journalist, um, who's speaking with the IDF and has sources developed over a dozen years, they have said that it's unknown how many were killed. And of course, before that, it was obvious that the Israelis killed some, because the Palestinian invaders did not have the weaponry to wipe out houses, burn cars, and all of that. So it was clear, but it was finally established as fact months ago in Israel, but it has still not become a daily fact in the West. It is still, if people mention numbers, they say 1240. Just like with rape, there has been, apparently, and this according to a lot of sources, including in Israel, no one has come forward with a claim that there was a rape, that they had been raped. There are no victims. There is apparently no video evidence of rape. And this New York Times article about the systematic rape by Hamas on October 7th was absolutely fabricated, and they debunked it. The Gray Zone was one of the, this is Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate. They debunked it, and all investigations since have agreed with them. But that doesn't mean there hasn't been rape all this time. But who's doing it? The Israelis. They're using metal rods and fucking the prisoners up the ass to the point where they're destroying their innards. And word got out, of course, and there were, now some of this is known in the West, but I'm not sure to what degree. But the in the West, they still talk about rape by Hamas. That is most certainly not true, particularly the systematic rape. It's bad military tactics, for one thing, and that was a pretty intelligent military assault. So, anyway, the Israelis are so fucking psychotic that when a rapist and a few cohorts of one of the rapists, and the rapist has come out and said, "Yeah, I did it. This is me. I've seen film of him," and of course, I trust the translations, but anyway, the guy, "Yeah, I did it. I did it. I don't see anything wrong with it." And ministers have actually said that it should be a matter of policy to rape those fuckers. And who are the fuckers? Hamas? No, they're just grabbing anybody and throwing them in jail and torturing them and making accusations. And, the torture includes the classic genital electrocution. I don't know when that's ever going to be passe. At some point, they're going to have a prisoner, they being the bad guys. In this case, that means the Israelis. They're going to, say, hey, wait a second. First of all, I'm innocent, but you don't care about that. I know. But, if I ever get out of here to testify against you, you're going to make me say that you electrocuted my balls, that you, stuck something in my cock, that you electrified my genitals. Do you want that? Do you want to be just an ordinary torturer? Waterboarding and all that shit. Do something original. I don't know about metal rods up the ass. I don't know how original that is, but the main thing that stands out about that is Israelis were appalled that the guy was arrested, and they actually attacked the IDF. They're so frenzied. They attacked IDF holding cells or whatever. And there's a big debate in Israel now about, who should be arrested. Definitely not the rapist. The person, one of the rape. I wanted to say rape apologists, but I don't think that's fair to say. More like rape enthusiasts. One of the rape enthusiasts was saying that, the person who should be going to jail is whoever leaked the film of one of the rapes, and I was thinking, it's another, must have been Julian Assange. Yeah, that's the guy we like to throw in jail for, when you look at the number of things that Assange exposed, it's incredible. Rather than, the world coming together and saying, fuck the United States, look what they've done, look what they've been doing, look what they keep doing. This is what would happen in a just world with a real United Nations. But instead, the U.S. Put Assange through a decade and a half of hell for exposing their war crimes. And, I remember showing them in class I was teaching 2008, 9? I don't know when that first came out, but it was before 2000, maybe 2010 or 11. Maybe that's when it was. But it was, it was just a little bit of it. This was, when there were the drone strike on reporters for carrying equipment. But anyway, all the other stuff that's happening in Israel, the problem is that it's now known in Israel where it doesn't matter because everybody is approves of whatever you do to Palestinians. They don't fucking care. The people, the public is now like 90% in favor of wiping them all out. And you read history books to find out more about that. And basically what I'm finding out, which I'm finding out what I thought I would find out, which is that's been the plan all along. There have been a lot of things that have, the Israelis are frustrated genocidists because their plan was to get rid of Palestinians from Israeli territory. That's it. there was one thing I read about yesterday. There in starting in the early 1920s and leading up to about 1935, um, the Israelis their plan was to have no laborers other than Israelis, because if you accept that Palestinians are working for you, that kind of means that they'll be around, and you don't want them around. If you're a genocidist, you want them gone. And it may be a little more complicated than that, but not much. And so what they I found out was that just by the nature of things, these people have been living together, going through hell together, like natural disasters, malaria, cholera, and World War I, which was devastating for all people in the area. The mostly well, Arabs and Jews, some Christians, you know, Arabs and Jews, Christians in Bruges. That's the poem, I think, or the song, or whatever. But they got the they've been suffering together, working together a little bit. And the Zionists come and they're trying to keep things, like, let's get these people apart. But they're not in charge of enough yet, because it's the British mandate, and and they can't be too. They're not strong enough yet to start dictating and blowing up hotels and shit like that in the 20s. So what ends up happening is, by the sheer nature of poor rural economy, you end up with the number of Palestinians working for Jews tripling during a period when the policy of the Zionists was no hiring of Palestinians. But it was just like you're if you weren't thinking about the same things that the leaders were thinking of, you're running a place. You need laborers. You're a poor Palestinian who's lost everything in the war. You need labor, and it just happens. And so the nature of things was working against the poor fucking genocidists. Anyway, so that what I'm trying to say is, you have to dig a little bit to find out which side are you on, which side is fucked and which side is insane and which side is not. And you'll the more you read, the more you'll find out that there are always nuances and so on. But the cartoon version that you hear about Israel, you'll lose that one pretty quick. That's the version where the Leon Uris cartoon Jews, like Paul Newman in the movie and so on, are heroic, and the entire Arab world is against them, and it's this enormous attack that miraculously the heroic Jews fight off the entire Arab world, when it was really nothing like that at all. And that leading up to that UN resolution, there had already been studies made by Zionists of what towns they were going, what villages they were going to cleanse, and that had been cleansed, others. And so and the military situation was nothing. The British were they trained the Zionists, and there was no real strong attempt by the Arab countries. They didn't even come close to having the ability to stop what was happening. But that's all for another day. Let's keep this under 30 minutes. I had to ramble on this because, frankly, it's depressing me every fucking day. Watching, I mean, last thing, I guess we're going to go slightly over 30 minutes. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, my kind of gal on domestic issues, and she gives a speech at the convention, and she says Kamala Harris is working tirelessly for a ceasefire, and it was just I nearly vomited. I like AOC. I want to keep liking her, but now I see her as just a fucking Democratic puppet, and who will lie. Kamala Harris doesn't even have to say she's working tirelessly. She's the vice president, and she's running for president. When is she going to work tirelessly for a ceasefire? And how is she going to do that? The only way she could do it is to have the guts to go against AIPAC, the Democratic donors, and fight the misinformation of every newspaper in the United States, every television news station in the United States. And she's got to say, just open your eyes. Here's a list of people you can talk to. There's this great physician from Norway who's brilliant on this, been working in Gaza since, and also I think he was working in Lebanon. Matz, what was his name? I can't remember. Matz something, but if you ever see Matz, watch him, because he's a powerful speaker and he knows everything. He's been a doctor working since '82 in Lebanon and Gaza. So she could say, talk to that guy, and you'll find out what's been going on. And then Harris would have to say, so given the situation and given that Israel is out of its fucking mind, we can't give them weapons anymore. Then you could say she's working for a ceasefire. Tirelessly? No, because she's got a lot of other things going on. But yeah, that AOC said that. Oh, fuck her. She's just now she's just another lying party hack. Anyway, so I had to do this because I'm really depressed. It's every day in and day out. I have to keep abreast of the issues, and I know where I could go to find out every day. Oh, Democracy Now!, by the way, is pretty good too. They'll give you a summary pretty much every day of who's been killed and how many have been killed, so it's still happening and so on. Anyway, this has been your daily report. I'm Rick Harsh. Buy books. We've got a lot of great ones. You can see them here and there, everywhere. This guy probably was the best on what's really going on in the political world in the United States. Chandler Broussard, Wake Up, We're Almost There. But this one actually is not so bad either. Assassination of Olof Palme. There's all kinds of stuff in there that you probably wouldn't know if you didn't have the historical itch. Okay. Enough. Goodbye. Saver Guitars. Contact me if you want to get a hold of them.